Hi there, Smart Drivers. Rick with Smart Drive Test talking to you tonight about more winter driving. Yes, it's late February, early March, and we're still dealing with winter. So we're going to talk to you about that and give you some more tips and strategies to stay safe and drive smarter in the winter. Stick around. We'll be right back with that information. Hi there, Smart Drivers. Welcome back. Rick with Smart Drive Test talking to you about more winter driving. In like a lion, out like a lamb, as the saying goes, for March, which means that if winter's coming in and it's a big storm, as it did in Ontario where my parents live, then it's going to go out like a lamb. At least we can hope it does. And so we're going to talk about some more strategies, techniques, and information about driving in the winter, finding ice, driving in slush, keeping your windows clean, keeping the windshield clear, and those types of things. And if you're just tuning in, let us know where you're tuning in from in the world, what class of license you are going for. Canadian Bandit, new guy here. Welcome to the Smart Drive Test community. Happy to have you here. Lakua, there she is. I believe it's a she. My apologies if not. Gordon's here. Carrie's here. Tuning in from Minnesota. Looking forward to talking about more winter driving tips and strategies for defensive driving and staying safe on the road. And Katie is here studying for her learner's permit. And over at the Smart Drive Test website, currently we have the Winter Driving Smart course on for absolutely free. You pick up the Pass Your Road Test First Time course and we will give you the winter driving course absolutely free. Was $75 and some change, but now you can pick it up for $37.95. So head over there and look for that on the front page. Corey will also put the link up for you. Corey's here at Bricks for Wheels. Corey is the moderator and does an excellent job of getting up videos for you that I suggest that will give you more information than what I'm able to help you with here. So essentially what we're going to do, I do a presentation for about 15 or 20 minutes, and then we answer questions for the remainder of the time here. We go for about an hour, and I'll do my best. And if anybody else, if you have questions, if you're watching on the replay, hit that thumbs up. Consider subscribing. Smart Drive Test helps new drivers get a license, veteran drivers to remain crash-free, and CDL drivers to start a career as a truck or bus driver. So hit that thumbs up button. Hall Phase is here. Bella 5. Nervous for my road test on Thursday. You're going to do great. You're going to do great on your road test. You've done the practice. Did you do driving lessons, or did you do mock road tests with a local driving school, those types of things? Gordon, let's hope the lamb of winter isn't as irritated towards the end of winter. Yeah, we can hope that. My mom was saying, she lives in southwestern Ontario, that they in fact had a blizzard the other day, and my brother was over with the tractor cleaning the driveway out because they got so much snow. You know, I kind of miss good old-fashioned blizzards there in southwestern Ontario where you got snow and wind and those types of things. So Canadian Bandit saying 27 centimeters worth of snow. I think it's Gordon. Okay, excellent. Yes, okay. And there, Corey's put up the special for getting the winter driving course for free over at the Smart Drive Test website. And check that out. So you pick up Pass Your Road Test First Time, we'll give you the winter driving course smart free. So we'll head over here to the presentation. We'll get through that and talk about winter driving. So more winter driving. More winter driving. So winter driving, in like a lion, out like a lamb, as the saying goes, for March. Hang on, old man, winter ain't done yet. Why is winter a man? I'm not sure. But anyway, don't like this at all. The pouty face and the little kid there is how it goes. If you're new to Smart Drive Test, my name is Rick August. I do have a PhD in legal history, which is the study of policing, courts, and prisons. My expertise is in policing as it relates to traffic, oddly enough. I graduated from the University of Melbourne in Australia in 2006 with my doctorate. I became a licensed driving instructor in 1997 after driving long haul for about 5 years up and down the eastern seaboard, in and out of Canada into the United States. And then I became a licensed driving instructor and went on to be a licensed driving instructor in the province of Ontario, the province of British Columbia, and in Australia as well. Drove buses for Greyhound while I was going to university in Australia, and you know, Australians are very fond of telling us that they in fact founded greyhound, which I'm not sure is true or not, but anyway. And if you want more information, you can look in the autobiography there, and as well, Corey will put the video up for you on Magic Happens, which is basically the founding story of Smart Drive Test. It's, you know, a good motivational video to get you going. All right, so one of the first things you want to do, especially in spring, if you're driving in winter, is there's going to be slush. There's going to be a lot of junk coming off the roadway because sanders have put a lot of sand down on the roadways in the wintertime, and especially right now, it's dirty, right? The cars are dirty, the roads are dirty, the snow is melting, it's making mud on the roadways. I just kind of washed the dirt off, sprayed the dirt off my car today, off the buggy, and everything is absolutely filthy. So make sure that you have good windshield washer. You have lots of windshield washer fluid in your vehicle. Make sure that you put winter washer fluid in your vehicle, not summertime, because it will freeze, and if it freezes in your plastic reservoir tank under the hood, as we know, when water freezes, it expands and it'll break that plastic reservoir under the hood, and then you have to have it replaced, and it's costly to replace that reservoir tank. So make sure that you have winter washer fluid. A few people had said that winter washer fluid, that Rain-X is the winter washer fluid that you want. It's a little bit more money, but it works really well in the wintertime. And as well, in the wintertime, make sure that you stay away from sand trucks and salt trucks. I'm not sure they're going to be out as much right now, but plows and sanders and those types of things are going to be out. I know here in British Columbia, I'm not sure what kind of sand and salt they use, but it seems that some of the rocks that come off there are like 10 centimeters in diameter, or like, you know, 4 or 5 inches, and they're huge. So they're going to put dings in your windshield and those types of things. So stone chips, and crack your windshield, and it's expensive to replace that. The other thing we're going to talk about is visibility at night. Night driving. Corey will put up the video for you on night driving. Essentially what you want to do is be able to find the road at night and in fog and rain and slush and those types of things. Because it is wintertime, it's going to be darker at night. It's going to be more difficult to find other landmarks and those types of things. And for newer drivers, one smart driver said to me a couple of years ago, it said, driving at night is like driving on another planet. And that is very true, because at night we lose half of our ability to see. So we're relying on landmarks, we're relying on reflective road signs, we're relying on following other traffic, and you can use that to a certain amount, but you know, follow other traffic, because for the most part, other traffic is going to stay on the roadway. Look for reflectors on the top of concrete barriers. Look for utility poles along the roadway and those types of things. Look for other traffic at intersections. It's going to cross and those types of things. So look for all of those landmarks. And the winter drive, or not the winter driving, but the night driving video that I have up here will show you how to do that and show you how to locate the road, and as well increase your following distance at night so you have more time to stop and avoid other vehicles and road users and those types of things. And the farther you get away from cities, the more difficult it is, because you're relying on the headlights of your vehicle, and as you rely more and more on the headlights of your vehicle, it's more difficult to see, because they're not very good, even on high beam. And you can't use high beam on your windshield wipe, on your lights on your car, as much as you'd like to think. And even if you do, if it's snowing, as you can see here in the image on the slide, it looks like, you know, the Millennium Falcon in you know, in hyperspeed. So you know, you can't. That's pretty tough. All right. Where is ice, as it's sometimes referred to as black ice? Bridges and overpasses freeze first when the temperature is around 0, and know that the temperature when it's around freezing, 0 degrees Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit, it's more difficult, it's slipperier than it is at sub-zero temperatures, because at sub-zero temperatures, at minus 20 degrees Celsius or minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit, it's ice and snow is going to be a bit sticky. Your snow tires are going to work better because they're designed for cold temperatures. They're not designed to work at around 0 degrees Celsius or at the freezing temperature, so it's going to be more slippery. Where you're going to find ice, bridges and overpasses, low-lying areas, high elevations, roads that lie in shadow. So if there's a building or there's a cliff or a hill or something, then it's going to shadow the road, and potentially you could get ice. and roads near bodies of water. And think about the weather the night before. If there was a lot of precipitation, if there was fog or there was rain or snow or something, and it kind of melts and freezes overnight, then in the morning, if you go out early, for example, you're going to work, say at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the morning, there's going to be a higher probability that there's going to be ice on the roadways, and these are the areas where you're going to find ice. And I kind of went over these a year ago when I was working for Highway Through Hell and teaching the film crew about winter driving and those types of things. And the Coquihalla Highway here in the mountains in British Columbia, I mean, those conditions exist everywhere. So it's just, there could be ice just about anywhere on mountain roads. So if you live in mountainous areas, that's where you're going to find ice and snow. All right. Loss of control. So if you do lose control in the wintertime or on slippery conditions, know that oversteering, overbraking, overaccelerating, any one of these things could potentially cause you to lose control of your vehicle. And if you lose control of the vehicle, it starts to go out of line, then you need to get your foot off the throttle, off the gas pedal, you need to get your foot off the brake, and you need to steer the vehicle in the direction that you want to go. And one of the funny stories that I tell people is years ago when I was a kid, we had Bill Cosby comedy skits on record player. We used to listen to the record, and one of the skits that he used to say was he goes into a skid in the wintertime, loses control of his vehicle. He's looking out the side window and there's a tree coming at him, and he's trying to remember, if you go into a skid, which direction do you turn the wheel, right? And because it was so confusing, do you turn into the skid or you're not turning the skid? No, just forget all that. Keep it simple, keep it smart. Steer the vehicle in the direction that you want to go. Just bear with me 1 second. And the speaker was probably on when I was yelling at my kid, because he's banging a balloon in the back. So, skid control. Look in the direction that you want to go when the vehicle goes out of control. Get your foot off the brake, get your foot off the accelerator, and that'll bring it back to straight. All right, oversteering. Oversteering is when the back end of the vehicle starts to come around, and often this happens when the vehicle goes out of line. If you look at the video here on the YouTube channel on top 5 reasons for crashes in the wintertime, it's often when vehicles are going around corners, they're too high of a speed for the conditions of the roadway, they're passing, so they're going in a lateral direction, on an angle, turning corners, those types of things. Any one of those situations where you've got a bit of speed, slippery conditions, and the vehicle is out of line. When I say out of line, it's not straight anymore. This is when you're going to lose control of the vehicle. And oversteering is when the back end of the vehicle starts to come around. So it's going to oversteer. And oversteering scares the heck out of the passenger, as they say. So this is what happens when that happens. And eventually what you want to do is unfortunately what happens with oversteering is with oversteering it's difficult to get it back because the vehicle is already out of line and it's tough to come back. So there you go. All right. So acceleration in terms of oversteering is often the best thing that you can do to try and get the vehicle back to straight, but it's really tough to do, and I'm not gonna kid you, this is a tough one to get out of. Anytime you lose control, and if you've got way too much speed for the conditions of the roadway, it's gonna be tough to get it back under control. Understeering scares the heck out of the driver, and understeering is when you turn the steering wheel and the vehicle continues to go straight. And this the first time this happens, when you're at kind of any speed, this will terrify the driver. All right, so the wheels are turned, but the vehicle's not turning. You're traveling too fast in a corner on slippery conditions, and again, similar thing. Slippery conditions, you're pushing the front end out. Sometimes what you can do is chop steering, and if you watch rally car racing, you'll see with rally car racing, they'll have the steering wheel, and many of the rally car racers will have a piece of tape on the top center of the steering wheel, which tells them when the wheels are straight on the vehicle. And what they'll do when they go around a corner is they'll do chop steering. I'm getting ahead of myself here in terms of this, but you can do that to try and regain traction when you experience understeering if you're not going too fast, right? You kind of come up and you feel that the vehicle is not going to turn the corner and those types of things, you can try this and see if it'll work and get you back to some type of control and some type of ability to steer when you're going around the corner. So it's a technique adopted from racing. Pull and release the steering wheel to regain traction, and look in the direction that you want to go. That is the most important feature in terms of getting your vehicle back to control. And in terms of skid control, the other two things that you want to do for skid control are have your seatbelt on, because if you don't have your seatbelt on, you're not going to stay in the seat when you're trying to do emergency maneuvers. If you're not in the seat, it is very difficult to control the steering wheel, to control the foot pedals when you're driving. So you have to have your seatbelt on. Most people think that the only reason that you wear a seatbelt is to protect you in the event of a crash. No, the other reason to wear a seatbelt is to keep you in the seat in the event of an emergency maneuver. The other thing you can do is the dead pedal, the place where you rest your foot on the extreme left of the footwell, is again adopted from racing, and you can post off that and push yourself back into the seat. You can put your foot on the dead pedal, straighten your leg out, push yourself into the seat, and hold yourself into the seat. So between the seat belt and the dead pedal, when you're going into a skid, you can hold yourself in the seat and control the vehicle. And again, you might have to steer like a crazy person, but if you can do that, you may regain control of the vehicle, and you might end up in the ditch, or might slightly go into the ditch, but it's going to keep you safe and you're not going to crash. All right, so steering control, drive for the conditions of the road, steer in the direction you wish to go. Use chop steering if you feel yourself lose traction and you can't get the vehicle going where you want it to go. There's another video here on the channel where I got going down to a roundabout and I got caught out in the morning because I was in a hurry with the kids and trying to get them to school and those types of things. And if you kind of get out of the main tracks of where the rest of the traffic is driving, again, you can get onto the shoulder and into a bit of gravel or into some snow, and you can find some traction that will allow you to maintain control of the vehicle. So as it says here, get out of the ruts, get off the brake, get off the throttle. All of this will help you to regain control. So skid recovery, steer in the direction you want to go. Don't give up. Work the steering wheel, wear your seatbelt. And if a crash is imminent, as sometimes it will be, I missed something there. Oh, okay. So if a crash is imminent, just talk about that for a sec. If a crash is imminent, make sure that you aim for something small. Don't aim for something big. Try to reduce your speed as much as possible so that you can reduce the amount of energy in the vehicle. If you can aim for a snowbank as opposed to a rock or a tree, that's going to be much, much better. So do that as well. And, try and hit it on an angle, try not to hit it straight on, and those types of things. All of that is going to reduce the amount of energy in the vehicle, so if a crash is imminent. All right. And then finally, so black ice, where do we find black ice? The 5 places that we potentially, bridges and overpasses freeze first, high elevations, low-lying areas, any place the roadway runs near a body of water, and one more place. Any place the road lies in shadow is the 5 places where you're going to find ice. Visibility. Have your low beams on at night, especially if it's snowing. Have your windshield washer with winter washer fluid topped up as well. Make sure you keep the glass clean. In fog, driving at night, make sure you're looking for landmarks. You can find the road. And as we know, for the most part, the other traffic is going to drive on the roadway. So follow the other traffic as well. All right, steering. If you go into a skid, oversteering, understeering, look in the direction you want to go. Have your seatbelt on, post off the dead pedal, and don't give up in an emergency situation. Many people have crashes when they lose control of the vehicle simply because they give up, right? They're just like, oh yeah, we're going to crash, we're going to die, and they just let go of the steering wheel and they go into a crash. So don't give up, okay? Steer like a crazy person. Get the thing back under control and get it back on the road and get going down the road so you're going to be safe. All right, and then little comedic thing there where the lion's saying, oh, we're going to have some more snow in March, and the lamb's like, no, we don't need any more snow, and the lion's like, oh, I can just eat you, and the lamb's like, no, snow's good. All right, so there we go. Where am I? Awesome. Excellent. All right. So people are here. DC, hello, my friend. Dash is here. How are you? And my friend Big Mac Sam is here as well. Hi, Sam. Sam is in New York. I'm going to see Sam in May. I'm very excited about meeting Sam as a real person. My friend Tim is here. Drive Smart BC. Drive Smart BC is a website. He has great information about laws and legislation here in the province of British Columbia. If you're driving here, have any questions about roadways and those types of things. Also, great discussion forums over there as well. So definitely check out Tim's website as well. Highway exits can be surprising. The main road is reasonable, but the exit hasn't seen the road maintenance contractors yet and is still frozen. And that's an excellent point that Tim makes about, the highway. The main roads are well maintained, salted, sanded, plowed, really great. And then you get off on the exit and it's slippery because the road crews haven't gone there. And the point about that, just to expand on that a little bit, the farther you get away from main roads, the less maintained they are, because the job of winter maintenance crews is to keep the main roads open. So into residential areas and byways and those types of things, they're not going to get there for a while. They might not get there at all. I know a couple of years ago here, we got 36 inches of snow in a very short period of time, a day and a half. And there were some roads in the residential areas that just simply never got plowed, never got looked after. So know that the farther you get away from main roads, the less maintained they're going to be. Okay, excellent. Dash is here. Don't wash your car in the winter time. Yes, when it's extreme freezing temperatures, definitely don't wash your car in the wintertime because your doors will freeze. And I know that because the buggies, when it gets to minus 20 degrees Celsius here, the doors in the buggy always freeze shut in the wintertime, and it's pretty tough for the kids to get in and out. Tim says, wasn't it Anson Pioneer instead of Greyhound down under? No, it was Greyhound down under, Tim, because I drove for Greyhound. And, all the people the Australians were fond of saying, oh, we founded Greyhound, but I never went and investigated it, so I just used that. Martin, I just finished a run to Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, and I'm currently in Fairbanks. 23 years of driving, and I finally met my match. Winter driving is challenging, but common sense goes a long way. Yeah. Martin, I try not to use the word common sense because you know how they say about common sense. Common sense ain't so common. And, there's a lot of people that just really need to be trained. Awesome. So, in keeping with winter driving, as I mentioned before, head over to the Smart Drive Test website. You'll get the Winter Driving Smart course absolutely free when you pick up Pass Your Road Test first time. So, that's a value of $75, and you can pick it up right now for $37.95 over at the Smart Drive Test website and get the winter driving course absolutely free. So, head over there and pick that up. And if you have any questions at all, talk to me, drop me an email, and we can definitely answer your questions that you have about winter driving, about passing a road test. And we have an awesome smart driver community here, and if we don't know the answers, we'll definitely put the question out and we'll get you the answer to your question. Gordon, I had a very scary incident where the snow and ice took me through a red light on a downhill road. Fortunately, I missed the yellow light by a few seconds. I allowed the driver on my right and left to go. So Gordon, that's I'm sure that was a very scary experience for sure. I've had a few of those in my life where you kind of hit the brakes and nothing's happening. So we're going forward, and you're going through the intersection. Now, the other good thing about that is know that there is a safety buffer on the intersection, right? There's a delay from the time that your light goes red until the other light goes green of 2 seconds. And I know that 2 seconds doesn't seem like a lot, but by the time the other traffic gets going, it's probably closer to 4 seconds. So you've got a good buffer of time there, which is really going to help you out. But I know that doesn't help in terms of, the ride getting a bit softer after you've just slid through an intersection. And I've seen a few people do that. But nobody was injured. You didn't have a crash. It was just a learning experience that you're going downhill, and gravity kind of helped you to make your way through the intersection there. Epic, your winter driving quiz was so helpful since it applies to both the United States and Canada when driving in the wintertime. Both have similar rules. Is it okay to shift an automatic manual low in gear? One of the things, Epic, that's an excellent question. It's kind of old school driving, shifting down to slow the vehicle. And I do not encourage drivers to do that. And this is the reason, because when you're shifting down, you don't have as much control as you do with the brakes. And if you shift down too much, you could potentially lock up the wheels, and you could potentially cause the vehicle to go into a skid. And that's the exact reasons why I discourage drivers to downshift to slow down in a manual transmission, and I discourage them to do it in an automatic transmission as well. I tell students to use the brakes. The reason that we downshift in manual transmissions, and there is a video here that'll give you more explanation on downshifting in a manual transmission, is that in the 1940s and 1950s, brakes were unreliable. They simply were unreliable. You didn't know whether they were going to work half the time, and it was very expensive to replace brakes. It was complicated procedure for a mechanic to replace the brakes. So drivers learned to downshift. Unfortunately, that kind of got passed to generation of drivers, and nobody ever questioned it. But now in this day and age, brakes are reliable. They're very reliable. Not only that, it's almost impossible for a braking system on a vehicle, whether it's hydraulic brakes or air brakes, to fail. They simply won't. They're divided into two independent subsystems. If you go under the hood and go open the cover on the master cylinder, which is basically the hydraulic pump for the brakes on your car, and it's located right in front of the steering wheel on the front of the engine compartment. Take that off. There's actually two compartments in there. So if the front brakes fail, the back brakes still have fluid and will still work. Air brakes are the same. They're divided into two independent subsystems. If one fails, the other one will continue to work. And as well, the other thing that I say, and this is the final point I'll kind of make on downshifting to slow the vehicle, why would you use a $15,000 drivetrain to save $400 brakes? Because brakes in this day and age are pretty inexpensive to replace. I mean, even if you got a big, Chevy 3500, it's still only probably going to cost you less than $1,000 to replace the brakes all the way around on that vehicle. And on slippery conditions, you have much more control. Now, of course, you're going to get into ABS. And for new drivers who don't know about ABS brakes, anti-lock braking systems, know that at intersections on slippery conditions, the ABS is going to kick in, and it's going to feel like you're launching the space shuttle. There's going to be grinding, there's going to be shudder in the pedal, there's going to be pushback, there's going to be a lot of noise, and it's going to kind of freak you out the first time it happens. But know that all of that is normal when it comes to ABS brakes. So what I suggest to you, just use your brakes. Don't shift down in a manual transmission for the purposes of slowing, because you have much more control with just the brakes. All right. Big Mac, my friend Sam, we need to plan something good. Also, where to meet. We'll communicate more through email. Yes, that would be great, Sam. Like I said, I'm coming from Albany, New York, and I'll get down fairly early in the morning so we can get some work done. One of the things I do want to do, Sam, definitely, is I want to do a mock road test. So you can be the examiner, and I'll be the student, and you can take me out and you can see how I do on a mock road test driving there in New York City. So that'll be kind of fun. So we can do that. We'll do it as kind of a live thing, right? I won't edit it, and then we can have a joke about different rules and those types of things, and you can mark me, and it'll be great fun. So great, Gordon. I have noticed here in the GTA that there are roads which are fairly busy and are not maintained to a standard of accident prevention. Yeah, and that's going to happen, Gordon, as I said before, and as Tim pointed out, road maintenance crews are going to be focused on the main roads, and there's going to be roads out there, byways and residential streets where there's simply, unfortunately, not going to be plowed. All right, Maxie, what do you think about self-driving cars? That is a very long discussion, Maxie, and not in my lifetime. I just don't foresee them coming in my lifetime. So, Michael, record the mock test. Yes, we're absolutely going to be recording the mock road test. It's going to be great fun, and I'm looking forward to working with Sam, and as well. Sam has a YouTube channel as well, Driving Lessons by Big Mac Sam. So definitely check out Sam's YouTube channel as well. Really great there. Canadian Bandit, according to mechanics at work, downshift stopping is the reason you get valve clatter later on. Okay, I'm not following that in terms of valve clatter. I don't know what that is, so maybe we need a bit more explanation on what that is. Canadian Mr. Bandit. Dash, plow trucks do bad jobs on all roads in Minnesota. Yeah, and I suspect, Dash, in Minnesota they get a lot of snow. I remember in the 90s when I drove that I ended up in Twig, Minnesota. Was it Twig, Minnesota? No, I went through Twig, Minnesota. I ended up in a place in Minnesota that was right on the Canadian border in the north. And wow, was it cold. And wow, was there a lot of snow there. Yeah, I remember it being very cold. Martin, for new drivers in BC, stay away from 37 South in the winter. You will thank me. 37 South is a bit treacherous, is it, Martin? Awesome. Geo, stay safe, guys, and positive. Still be watching his videos after I pass my test, but I'm trying to memorize everything he says so I can teach my loved ones the same thing I've learned. Awesome, Geo. And if you have any questions at all, Geo, definitely drop us a note, and we'll definitely do what we can to help you out and keep you safe on the roadway. DC, I'm curious about ABS, and does it make a big difference on front-wheel drive cars? DC, the reason that they brought in ABS brakes in the late 1980s, early 1990s was that people were losing control of their vehicle with standard brakes. And as I said in the presentation, and as I've said before, the reason that we lose control is because a locked or spinning wheel always leads. So in other words, you go down the road and you have standard brakes on your car, which you can't get anymore because they all have ABS brakes. You lock up the vehicle is going to start to turn and come around. If you spin the wheels, like, you know, you got a high car with rear wheel drive, the back end's going to come around, right? Same thing with a front wheel drive. You spin the wheels, the front end's going to pull sideways on you. So ABS brakes were implemented as a standard feature in the late 1980s and early 1990s. And I mean, you couldn't buy a car now that didn't have ABS brakes, anti-lock braking systems. So the reason for anti-lock braking systems was that you could brake in an emergency situation and you could steer in an emergency situation. The problem with ABS brakes is they brought this new technology out on vehicles, but they didn't train drivers. There was no wide education campaign to educate drivers about ABS brakes. And there were a few people, you know, with any new technology that died. There was a very famous story of a police officer, and I would have to look this up to verify the story, but there was a police officer who died in Texas with ABS brakes. At least that's what they claimed. You know, it's all kind of leveled out now, and most people do know that most vehicles are fitted with ABS brakes, which allow you to both steer and brake in an emergency situation. And that's the purpose of them, so that they won't stop you in a shorter distance, but they will give you more control of the vehicle. And they're also having very positive steps, and maybe there's some other smart drivers here who have more information about this. There's very positive tests on motorcycles that motorcycle riders are able to have much more control with a motorcycle that's fitted with ABS brakes as opposed to motorcycles that don't have ABS brakes. You know, there tends to be many more crashes and fatalities with motorcycle riders who don't have ABS brakes on their motorcycle. So that's kind of the long and short of ABS brakes and the history of those and how they came in. Even most tractor trailers now, tractor units will have ABS brakes. Most of the trailers, not so much, but you know, that's kind of part and parcel of having large numbers of trailers and not as many tractors. Okay, Gordon would hate to see self-driving cars on slippery embankments. Yeah, it's just, you know, just on the note of self-driving cars, while we're talking about this, some years ago, a couple of years ago, not some years ago, 2 years ago, I was approached by a company in the States that was putting together a team of people who was going to develop technology that was going to retrofit cars back to 2012 to be self-driving. And the explanation that they gave to me is that some years ago with Google, when you had to type in you had to type in the words on the Google, what do they call it, to verify that you're a human. they were saying that there were a whole bunch of documents in the world that they had scanned electronically, and to make sure and to check the way that they did that, what they did was they would do this on the Google, the human check, and then they would, if they got 100 answers where 90 people answered what the words were, then that's what it was. At least this is what they responded to me. So what they were going to do is they were going to get people to play games, and they were going to simulate driving experiences, and if 90 people out of 100 people did one thing, then that's what they were going to program the computer with. Well, so I went away because they wanted me to come on the team, and I was thinking about it. And there's 6 factors in driving, the 6 variables of driving: the driver, the vehicle, road, traffic, light, and weather. And those 6 variables change all the time. And I started to think about it, and I realized that on any given stretch of road, at any given time, you can never replicate the vehicles, the types of vehicles, the mix of vehicles that's on that stretch of road, and the drivers who are driving those vehicles. You can never, ever, ever replicate that. And so I declined coming on the team. I just said, I don't believe this is ever going to happen or this is ever going to work. And interesting, one of the other smart drivers, I have a video on self-driving cars, and I basically say that probably not in this century are we going to see self-driving cars. And one of the smart drivers said to me that they can program computers to beat the top chess players in the world, but they can't program computers to beat and play and beat the top Dungeons and Dragons players in the world. So chess is on a very fixed board with predictable moves that lend themselves to mathematical computations, but Dungeons and Dragons has variable rules and different conditions, and things change according to the evolution of the game in something similar to the way that driving does. So they can't program computers to play Dungeons and Dragons and be competitive. At least that's what one of the smart drivers said. I would need to do more investigation into that, but it all makes sense to me in terms of what I've been thinking about self-driving cars. And it's interesting that we had self-driving cars. We had the big push there a couple of years ago with kind of Elon Musk, spearheading the way, pushing self-driving cars forward. And then there are a couple of crashes where there were fatalities with self-driving cars, and the whole thing kind of went underground. Right? I mean, we haven't heard a whole lot about it. And, he was saying we were going to be selling self-driving cars by the beginning of 2020. Well, that hasn't happened. So, there we go. All right. Arlene, I need your help taking some of your school courses so I can prepare and be ready for how do I pay for them. Thanks, Arlene. Arlene, you simply need a credit card, and then it's all paid through PayPal. And if that doesn't work for you, I can send you an invoice. So send me an email, rick@smartdrivetest.com, and we'll definitely help you out and do what we can to help you out. Now, the other thing I just want to say about the courses on Smart Drive Test: if you purchase the courses, you have complete access to me to ask me questions, and I will mentor you and help you and do everything I can to get you through. The audio seems low. Okay, no, that's great. Thanks, Tim, for letting me know that. I'll move this. Okay. Yeah. I pulled the microphone over, and of course I dropped everything off the desk here. That's what you hear banging on the ground. I don't think I broke the picture, which is good. Excellent. Nia, you mentioned ramps before. Are there any clues on how to enter a freeway with ice or snow on it? Yes. Nia, when you're going around the corner, make sure that you go, slower than you normally would if you suspect there's ice or snow on that corner or curve. And then once you get the vehicle straightened out, then you can throttle up, okay? And make sure you kind of feel the throttle, feel the front end, because a lot of you are going to be driving front-wheel drive vehicles, at least here in North America. Other parts of the world, you may be driving rear-end vehicles. But you kind of want to get that feel for it and make sure that when you're accelerating up to speed. The other thing, Nia, is if it is icy, the road's going to be icy too. So the traffic on the freeway is not going to be traveling at normal speeds, right? So if the on-ramp is icy, you don't need to accelerate as much because you only need to get up the speed of the road on the freeway and highway and those types of things. All right. Gordon, so therefore you have AIs with different variables, lots of different variables, Gordon. And I don't know whether you can, I don't think it's possible at this time. Like, I have a very high-end computer to run my YouTube channel and to do my videos and those types of things. And I still have to restart it. And I was doing something the other day I was working on iPhoto. And my computer's freezing up. iPhoto is causing my computer to freeze up. If my computer sitting on my desk is freezing up that's not moving, how do we expect something to be reliable that's going up and down the road at 60 or 70 miles an hour most of the time? It's going through winters and sun and heat and all those types of things. I mean, when my high-end computer is freezing up on my desk, I'm a little concerned about cars, right? And I've had accusations where people have said, "Oh, you don't know anything about AI." Well, I'm certainly not a scientist for sure. I'm not a computer scientist, but I certainly know how technology works. I know how automotive technology works, and I know that most of the time it works really great, but sometimes it doesn't work that well at all. Oh, M7MD. Greetings from Egypt. That is awesome. Welcome to the live stream. That is awesome. And where are you in Egypt? Awesome. Okay, Dash. My car has a hard to get in gear and it's quite dangerous when driving on roads. So, Dash, do you have a manual transmission car that's difficult to get into one of the gears? Because I know sometimes on some manual transmissions, and maybe some of the other smart drivers watching on the replay or watching now are driving a manual transmission, and they kind of have one gear that's really tough to get into. My first truck was like that. Very old 1971 GMC half-ton that had a 3 in the tree. It was basically a standard shift column on the steering column, and it was really tough to get it into second gear. And basically, I was the only one that could drive it that could get it into second gear. Of course, my brother too, because I bought it off my brother. Video Galley, your computer's freezing up. No, what happened, Video, was that I was using iPhoto, and I think I had too much open. I've got a lot of RAM on my computer, like 32 gigs of RAM, and it's a beast. But I just got way too much crap on my machine. I got too many photos, too many videos, and I think I had Final Cut Pro open and iPhoto at the same time, and it was just like the computer was balking. And I was trying to do a photo book for a friend of mine for his birthday. So yeah, I was really pushing the limits of my big machine here. So Carrie, when driving through neighborhood uncontrolled intersections on ice and snow and cannot see well due to high snowbanks or blocked views, what is the safest way to handle driving in this situation? Obviously, the best way to handle that, Carrie, is to just, in residential areas, you're not going to be driving 30 miles an hour. You're not going to be driving 50 kilometers an hour, especially when you got high snowbanks and those types of things and you can't see the cross streets and whatnot. The other thing with us in North America, it's not like some places in the world that shall not be mentioned. People are not just going to come out from underneath the snowbank. Like if I'm pulling up and I got a high snowbank that I cannot see around, I'm going to come up, I'm going to stop my vehicle, and then I'm going to inch out, right? So you'll be able to see cars on the side streets at the uncontrolled intersections that are nosing out into the intersection so they can see. Because a fair part of the car has to go past the snowbank in order to be able to see the intersection when there's a tall snowbank there. So first and foremost, you're not going to be going 30 miles an hour in a residential area. And second of all, the cars that are coming out to proceed through the intersection, they're kind of going to be nosing out. Okay? Excellent. M7, I'm from Alexandria, Egypt. Your driving tips are really helpful to me. I just want to thank you for all your efforts here. Keep it up. That is brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant, M7. Thank you so much for tuning in and letting us know that you're there in Alexandria. Awesome. Oh, can't wait. I can't wait to go to Egypt and the Middle East and other places. Egypt is in Africa, obviously, but the Middle East and other places, and just do some driving there. That would be really awesome. Dash, I'm a safe driver, but when it comes to riding my bicycle, I'm crazy on the road. Yeah, Dash, you might want to revisit that because I'm working on a crash analysis video right now, and I was watching some of the dash cam footage, and some of these people who get cleaned up in a pedestrian crosswalk is just it just makes me crawl. It hurts. Because I see these people get hit by a car, and I know that they're not right. They're never going to be right again. You get hit by a car, you get hit by a car on a bicycle or on a pedestrian, and it is really going to mess you up. So I might encourage you to rethink that in terms of your craziness on a bicycle. Sam, have you ever been rear-ended? If so, how many times? In the 30 years I've been driving, I've been rear-ended 7 times in my car. Sam, can't say I've been rear-ended. No, never been rear-ended. I would be interested in having a conversation with you about that on a video and talking about being rear-ended and what happens. There you go, Dash. Now you explained it to me that you do stunt riding, so that makes it a bit different. Katie, excellent. Thank you for asking that, Katie. Thank you for clarifying that. One of the things that I'm working on, very much so, is to try and bring my language down, because oftentimes it makes sense to me in my head, but it doesn't make sense to other people what I'm saying. High elevation just means you're up on top of a hill. Okay, so if you go up on top of a hill or a rise or something like that, that's high elevation. That's where it's going to freeze. Okay. Gordon, I read an article through that 2 AI machines spoke to each other in a constructed language. If you have AIs with autonomous personalities, you may as well have sentient beings driving. Yeah, there is that point as well. Okay. Excellent. Epic. Speaking of snowplows, yes, and the American ones do not have blue blinkers lights, unlike the Canadian plow trucks, which have blue blinkers. Actually, Epic, the only province in Canada that has blue flashing lights to identify snowplows and sand trucks is in the province of Ontario. At least that's what I'm aware of. There might be other smart drivers on the replay who are watching who may correct me on that, but as far as I'm aware, that's the only place that I know of that is mandated that they have blue flashing lights to identify snow crews is in Ontario. And actually, I had a good laugh about that when I was in the driving instructor course in Australia, when they were talking about emergency vehicles having blue flashing lights. And at that point, I was from Ontario, and they were talking about that. And I said, I just want to clarify that blue flashing lights are ambulance, fire, and police. And they said, yes, it does. I said, I just want to clarify that because where I come from, blue flashing lights mean, snow crews, snow plows and whatnot. And they said, no, we don't have a lot of snow plows in Australia. So there you go. Maxi, is all-wheel drive or two-wheel drive better for driving in winter? Maxi, definitely all-wheel drive is going to be better for you in the wintertime. It's got some... all-wheel drive is a little bit complicated to explain. It's definitely not four-wheel drive. And it's going to be different depending on the manufacturer of the vehicle. So it's going to vary between Chevy, General Motors, between Dodge, Mitsubishi, Honda, Toyota. It's going to vary a little bit about which wheels are going to be getting power and which ones aren't. And I had a conversation with one of the salespeople at Honda who is knowledgeable about all-wheel drive and explained it to me. And essentially what the system does is there's a computer in it, it detects wheel spin, and then it's going to redirect power to whichever wheel is spinning. So that's essentially what all-wheel drive does. But I've driven all-wheel drive Subarus. Oh my God, they're something else in terms of, they have traction control, they have all-wheel drive, and they are exceptional on slippery conditions. I mean, Subaru a few years ago was the top rally car in the world. So know that in terms of all-wheel drive in the wintertime. Really good, really good. Gordon, I was a victim of a hit and run incident. Fortunately, I was hit on the turn and the car itself was fairly low. After the incident, however, I got injuries, and that's unfortunate. Sorry to hear about that. Yeah, and that goes back to what Gordon was saying about what I was saying before about being a vulnerable road user. If you're a pedestrian, cyclist, if you're riding a motorcycle on the roadways, you're on a scooter or some other mobility device, and you get hit by a car, yeah, it's not like, you just get up and walk away from it like you do in the movies if you're in a car crash. If you're in a car crash, we're frail creatures, and, you could potentially walk away from it, but you could potentially not walk away from it and sustain serious life-threatening injuries, especially if you get rear-ended. Unfortunately, like Sam said, you could sustain some some long-term soft tissue damage in your neck and those types of things, and it can be debilitating. So I used to be like that when I was younger as well. Walk across the intersections and those types of things and think to myself, oh, they'll stop. And then I became a driving instructor and realized how vulnerable you are. And I'll tell you, I'm a lot more careful now in terms of crossing the roadway and making sure that the drivers are bringing their vehicles to a stop before I step out into the roadway and whatnot. Maxie, also, if you are in the intersection making left-right turns and there is emergency vehicles, what should you do? So if you're in the intersection, there's one of two things that you can do, Maxie. One of the things you can do is bring your vehicle to a stop and just stop and let the emergency vehicle, make its way through the traffic at the intersection. If you think that you have time, you can see the emergency vehicle in your rearview mirror or whatnot, and you can turn and clear the intersection before the emergency vehicle arrives. That's another thing that you could potentially do. Okay, so one of two things is what you could do. Most of the time it's better if you're sitting at the intersection to just stop. And what I would suggest, Maxie, is to have a look at the video on driving test compilation where it's pass-fail. There's a couple of clips in there of the emergency vehicle, so have a look at that as well. Sam, I'm very surprised you were never rear-ended. It wasn't really that bad when it happened to me. I hated the screw prints used to leave in the back of my car. Now, saying that, Sam, now that you asked me that question and my memory's kind of kicking in a little bit, I did rear-end somebody else many years ago when I was a new driver. But it wasn't like a rear end where I really drove into them. It was kind of like I just couldn't get the car stopped in time and I kind of just bumped into the back of them. So I did do that from somebody else. But like you said, it sounds like a couple of your rear end crashes were just kind of bumps. They weren't really like driving into somebody like at a queue or something like that. All right. Katie, should I turn my flasher on if my vehicle breaks down, such as in an interstate? Yes, it's a good idea, Katie, to do that if you do break down on the side of the road, to turn your flashers on. Now, if you're going to leave the vehicle there for a length of time, you don't want to leave your flashers on because you're going to wear your battery out. When you come back, your battery's not going to work. But I mean, you might get it towed and those types of things, so that's another thing. Okay? Rich, my father was rear-ended and suffered a neck injury and a heart attack. Yes, because it is shock to your body. And I've had a friend who recently was involved in a crash and was complaining about her body hurting, and she's got a lot of bruises and cuts on her body from the seatbelt. There's a huge bruise on her collarbone here, and some damage to her face and arms and those types of things. Because the other thing, when you're involved in a crash and you get thrown forward, your limbs go out. Your arms go out like this, and your fingers will get jammed into the console, the dashboard, and into the steering wheel and those types of things. So you're gonna hurt. You're getting shocked when you're in a traffic crash. It's gonna take you a little while to recover from that. So know that there's 3 crashes that happen when you get into a crash with the car. There's the car coming to a stop. There's you coming to a stop against the seatbelt and the airbag and other components inside the vehicle, especially if you don't have your seatbelt on. And then there's your internal organs and your brain moving around in your chest cavity. And somebody was saying to me the other day now that Formula One and NASCAR, that these race car drivers are attaining such high speeds that essentially their brain disintegrates upon impact if they get into a crash. The type of crash that's really 200 miles an hour, because the brain, even if you're wearing a helmet and all of the safety features in the race car, your body cannot sustain that, because your body is going that fast and your brain is going that fast, and it comes up against your skull. So know that you're experiencing shock, you're experiencing trauma when you're involved in a crash. That's how you explained it. Awesome. So it was just a bump. Okay, good. So I'm glad that it wasn't anything like really pounding when you got into a rear end crash. All right, so if you're tuning in, consider hitting that thumbs up. If you're watching on the replay, give it a thumbs up. If you like what you see here in Smart Drive Test, consider subscribing as well. Leave us a comment. We'll try and help you out as best we can to get your license, be safer and smarter on the roads. If you're a veteran driver, and as well to start a career as a bus or truck driver. That's what we do here. And as well, like I said, you get Winter Driving Smart, the course, absolutely free over at the Smart Drive Test website when you purchase Pass Your Road Test first time. So that's a value of, it's $70, $75 is the cost of those two courses together, but right now you get it for $37.95. So head over to the Smart Drive Test website and pick that up. And like I said, if you're watching on the replay, thumbs up, leave us a comment, and we'll do what we can to help you out with more driving and those types of things. Gordon, I witnessed my first rear-ending a month ago. The driver who was rear-ended had a look on his face saying, "Here we go again." I was surprised that the shrapnel the crash yielded at a low speed. Yes, and that's the other thing, and that's an excellent point in terms of crashes, and maybe what I can do next week is actually have a whole presentation on crashes. Vehicles are specifically designed to crumple. They have crumple zones in them. Essentially, that's what happens. They're plastic and aluminum, and they do crumple up. And most vehicles now, even in minor crashes, they're all written off. Insurance just writes them off because it's too expensive to fix them, and it actually makes more sense for the insurance company to write it off, and then what they do is they sell it out to companies that part them out. Because say for example, let's take the example of my friend. She crashed her 2010 Dodge Ram 1500 Sport. Okay, so 3/4 of the truck is still okay, and they could probably salvage the engine out of it. So the engine was a Hemi. It was a V8 Hemi engine. Well, just the engine in that truck, I'm guessing that just the engine out of that truck is $8,000. That they could pull the engine out of that, they can part that out. And then when you part things out, it's the same thing as if you go and buy parts at your local auto shop. Parts are 400% what they're going to be. You know, if you took a whole vehicle and you went to the auto parts store, you went down to Honda. Say for example, you're going to build a Honda Civic. You went down and bought all the parts of Honda. By the time you got done, that car would cost you $150,000 because the parts are so expensive as opposed to buying the whole car. So the way that insurance companies do it is when you wreck your car in a crash, they write it off, they give you fair market value, and then they sell it, and then whoever buys the vehicle parts it out. And that's how they make money on it. So the insurance company never really loses in terms of buying you out on the car because they part the vehicle out and make more than the car was worth. So say for example that you got a 2010 1500 Ram Sport, they give you $20,000. They sell it for $25,000, and the person who buys it strips it down, you know, like in a chop shop, but a legal chop shop, and then they part it out, and they make a lot of money on it. So the insurance companies don't really lose, even though they would like you to think that they lose. This is how they make money. It's a big money thing, right? Where insurance companies have the payout, though, where it costs money to insurance. So don't think that insurance is a big money making thing. It's not. Insurance companies pay out millions and millions and millions of dollars in terms of liability. So if you crash into somebody and they sue you, sometimes that payout can be $1 million, $2 million. Or property damage. So for example, you drive into a house and wreck the house. Well, they got to pay to fix the house, and the house could be $30,000, $40,000 to repair it, depending on the amount of damage you do. So there's a lot of things going on, with insurance companies that's the reason why insurance could be expensive, right? But in terms of writing off vehicles, it's just easier for them to write it out, sell the vehicle, have it parted out, and they make a lot of money. All right, Bandit. I knew a guy who got hit from a drilling post in the oil field, never hit his head on anything, and just him getting hit that hard made him forget the car he had back at home. Yeah, and just on that note, Bandit, some years ago when I worked at the hospital doing driver rehabilitation, I worked with a couple of people. One person in particular who comes to mind, he fell 70 feet. He fell off a silo, a farm silo, fell 50 feet onto another silo, and then fell off that silo 20 feet. He broke like 23 bones in his body, lost most of his teeth, and sustained a huge brain injury. And I wouldn't wish brain injuries on my worst enemy. And I worked with a number of people who had brain injuries and recovered from brain injuries. The problem with brain injuries is that what you get after approximately 24 months, 2 years, is essentially all you're going to ever recover. And the thing that I experienced with people who were returning to driving and had sustained a brain injury was that 2 or 3 days they would be fine, everything would be good, and then one day they would be completely unable to function. And I had a couple of people in the vehicle with me. One driver that I was working with to do driver rehabilitation, we were training him. We got in the car, everything was fine. He was talking to me. We drove out of the parking lot, and all of a sudden he's driving towards a light standard. And I said to him, I said, Tom, I said, you're not having a good day, are you? He said, no, I'm not having a good day. I said, why didn't you just tell me? And just, well, I didn't want to let you down. I said, no, you're not letting me down. I said, I totally understand your challenges. And I said, we'll just do it again tomorrow. I said, go home, get yourself sorted out, and just come back, right? But that's what happens with people who have brain injuries. And, we don't wear helmets in cars, so you can be susceptible to a brain injury. So, it's unfortunate. Maxi, how effective is blind spot mirrors and blind spot monitoring? Maxi, blind spot monitoring is excellent technology. I really like that technology in the new vehicles. However, it doesn't eliminate you needing to shoulder check. Think of it like a backup, right? It's just a backup that's going to help to keep you safer when you're driving on the roadways. And actually, I'm doing a video right now on shoulder checking to the left and why you should do that and crashes that could potentially result from that. So that's what I'm working on to get up this week here. So we're at the end here. We're going to leave that up. Again, check out the winter driving course, Winter Driving Smart. You get that free when you pick up Pass Your Road Test first time over at the Smart Drive Test website. If you've passed your road test in the last couple of weeks, congratulations. If you got one coming up the next week or so, good luck on that. Drop us a note if you need any help. Hit that thumbs up button. And remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great night. Bye now.